All right. I think we are live. If you can hear me in the chat, push 1. All right. Welcome back to the Black Brain Trust. This is episode open chat number 16. Hit the like button as you come in. Share the video if possible. Hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. We'll see who we have in the chat. We have Willie Little John. What's going on? Excalibur, what's going on? Diary of a SLP clinician. Good evening to you. Reigning Woman, good evening to you as always. The lovely marketing exec of the Black Brain Trust. Always promoting us in the positive light and giving us positive spirits and energy that we also need in this up, up, down, down world. We had a great hangout yesterday. If you have not had the opportunity to catch that, it was Mentorship Mondays. So Black Mentorship Mondays is a new series we're kind of running on. We'll probably flip back and forth between that and space and technology, but for the foreseeable future, Black Mentorship Mondays is definitely something we're going to keep following up on and keep that in our portfolio. Excellent hangout. So when you get a chance, make sure you check that out. I had to start this hangout or this live stream a little bit later than than it was scheduled for because my phone had a software update. So I had to make sure that the software update went through first before my phone crashes during the hangout. So I know there's other live streams going right now, and possibly people are perusing those other live streams of mediocrity as they are with farm animals and billy goats and things like that. So I don't think we'll be on here very long, probably on here about an hour or so. Red Lion 718, what's going on, bro? Yeah, so tonight's open chat is black male subordination. And what does it really mean? So black male subordination really consists of a lot of black males, young and old, cowtailing to a narrative in a philosophy, in a social order that does not serve their best interest. Now, people will say, you know, men should take, men are supposed to lead, they're supposed to oppose the environment. That may be true in theory, But what happens when you socialize a child to be, a young boy to be in a position of subordination to his superior, which is not a male? How can he impose the environment? Well, that's his natural. Some will say, well, that's his natural genetic makeup. You know, that's just how men are. I'm not seeing that if we're using the manosphere as an example. We see a lot of black male subordination. We usually call them blue pill, but I won't talk about the different pill, the variations of pills being popped in the manosphere, because there's a whole lot of pill popping in the manosphere. You would think they were opioid addicts up in the manosphere, all these red pills. And what happens here is that these black males get you know, hustled along throughout their whole entire childhood into their adulthood, being subservient to a social order that does not serve their best interests. And then people are upset that these guys are not out there, you know, killing the game. How come they're not in Silicon Valley? How come they're not out there building, you know, utility grids? How come they're not dominating the American society, the Western society? How is he supposed to do that? Where's he supposed to get his masculine foresight from? Where's he supposed to get that from? Oh, I see. It's embedded in his system. That's just the natural order. You know, these expectations of this black male. You're 18, get out of the house. You're an adult now. Yeah, legally he's an adult. Legally he can vote. But you sabotage him from 0 to 18.
I mean, it's on purpose, by the way.
What's going on, MOT?
Oh, what's going on, man?
You can feel free to jump in.
Yeah, I mean, it's on purpose. You don't see any other society of dominant men buck breaking their boys before they actually return men, period. I mean, you just don't see that. Like, nobody sees that it's a problem that men are actually supposed to work on behalf of people and build for people when they just don't have that skill set. They're not. I mean, it's kind of like they turn the black boys into quiet submissives. They get their masculinity assigned to them by whatever person who wants to take the most advantage of them and equitably take advantage of them. It's kind of like they make him pliable and rife for matriarchal usury. And it's like this. If the women were going to help the households and the boys were not going to build, how is this ever supposed, like, what was going to be the end road of this, if not 20-year-olds lapping 60-year-olds? That's the system that we set up. We set up a system of stagnation. That's what we set up, purposefully so. Like, nobody wants to be responsible for how children are created. No one wants to be responsible for who they be with. They want emotions and loud words to, like, lead the day. And that's just now how operating societies are supposed to function. And it's like they want all of these able-bodied, productive men, but not if they're going to be masculine with it. So I'm like, so how you going to have a masculine, productive man without wanting him to be a leader with it? I mean, I don't get it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, the frustration that, you know, people have with, you know, young black males, and I'm not saying that every black male is is oh, sorry, I got distracted from one of these alerts that came in. I'm not saying that every black male can use this as a 100% excuse, but what I'm saying here is if we're using the 80-20 rule, 80% of our boys have been cultivated for failure. And the viable 20%, you know, we chase those ones out. And then we expect those ones to come back and to construct this sort of utopia, this black utopia, that basically says, you know, men will be subordinate to this weird social order, this liberal social order that says that they can do no wrong and that you will be held accountable regardless of if you were there, if you were present or not.
Yeah. So what they did is they thought that since they didn't treat you with a level of humanity, you would never find acceptance on your own outside of that context. So they were waiting on you to come back to the fold, so that way you can have their fake level of humanity because they never gave it to you. And somehow that system of respect was supposed to win you over and make you come build for them for some reason.
Mm-hmm. And now they become adults and they're being weaponized, the little masculinity that they have left, which is the brute force aspect, that's being weaponized against the 20% of the other men who are viable to fall in line with the social order.
Yeah, because the social order doesn't care about their own happiness. They only care about a woman's happiness. That's why women don't have to bring anything to the table in this construct. That's why it doesn't matter how a woman look in this construct. That's why everybody want to be quote unquote chose. Nobody wants to go out there and fight for, defend, and build their own stuff. They're waiting for their masculinity to be handed down to them by specific groups of people. And that stuff doesn't work. And it's kind of hard to get the women to understand that because they care so much about control that they don't care about the results of it because they're surrounded by a whole bunch of men. Most of them are 45 plus who hand them an immunity idol that they get to just hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
This is why I don't like the issue when somebody say female nature. I'm like, well, guess what? I've never seen nobody in any courtroom ever cited female nature and a woman walks free, despite how bad the crime is. But you have pseudo psychologists on the damn internet who telling you everything is female nature. Everything is. So it's kind of like if we're cultivating a society where one gender gets to do whatever they want to, and the other gender's masculinity is based on them shutting up about it, how actually are we supposed to get ahead? And who's supposed to be building this thing?
Mm-hmm.
Because you expect a certain group of people to stay for reasons that escape me.
Mm-hmm.
You expect people to build for reasons that escape me. And then they expect a 100% benefit, even though they never tried to put in on anything. They have told themselves inside their head that no matter what, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to do my thing
Mm-hmm.
until a nice, productive man comes along. And somehow they're going to have even more respect for men, a man that they didn't earn, than the men that they just had their way with all the time. So it's kind of like, how are these dudes supposed to be productive citizens if they've been raised in Arkham Asylum? I mean, if you're just an Arkham resident, all you know is crazy stuff because the crazy stuff has just been going on. That's the only thing that's been happening here.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like getting good grades, being a math and science major, all this stuff that these parents know would turn this person into a competing force in the actual marketplace. All those things are discouraged, and all the other things are encouraged. And then you have Fox Paws men who want to walk around talking about how many women that they get. It's some default level of masculinity, and it's like, dude, listen, you have to look at it in context and out of context. The in context is, what are other people of same age but different ethnicities worried about?
Mhm.
And what are they being prepared for? And what is black men being prepared for? In other societies, they're being prepared to compete, take over companies, build things. Our actual thing is to be prepared to go to the gym, self improve, and then give it all away to a person who never earned anything. And that's supposed to be your prize. The idea that you could be used and abused by somebody who everybody's going to eventually let off the hook and not hold to account. Like, so it's like, how do you motivate people to continue staying in it such a concept?
Opioid addiction. Let's get Wacky World of O and Complex Design on, man. What's going on, Complex? What's going on, Wacky World of O? The original O man.
Ha, Mike, MOT, Wacky, what's good, y'all?
Chilling, fam, chilling.
Hey, what's up? What's up, brothers? How you doing?
Oh, what's up? What's
MOT,
going on?
Chilling, bro.
MOT,
Good,
Chilling.
good.
Mike, Complex. How y'all doing?
Chilling, fam. Chilling. You have anything you want to add to this discussion?
Yeah. What I'm seeing is, you know, during chattel slavery in the United States, what you had was bucks, where certain black males was groomed to just be sexual beings in order to breed more slaves.
Mm-hmm.
And what I see is that within so-called Black America, we still continuing this conditioning, breeding black males to be bucks, and that's it. We're not breeding them to be leaders. I guess I'm just repeating the same points that MOT just brought up. You know, we're not breeding them to be leaders. We're not breeding them to be great fathers. We're not breeding them to be productive individuals in society. And like MOT said, we're not conditioning, our black boys to be competitive in this world. We just breed them to be sexual bucks, especially when it comes to this. You know, it's already bad enough where you have this matriarchy in Black America that's conditioning black boys to become that. But then you have these online quote unquote dating coaches doing the same thing. These so-called self-improvement guys continuing this same conditioning, but covered up under the disguise of self-improvement, was really just more conditioning for these young black men that's gullible enough to listen to their nonsense to become bucks. That's it. And it's disgusting. It's disgusting.
And people co-sign a lot of these ideals as if there's something fruitful to come out of this. We had a hangout yesterday. That, shout out to everybody who's on the mentorship panel yesterday. And some of the stories I've heard of their upbringing, man, it's horrific. Who thinks like this? Who really wants to who really wants to walk down that plank? You see movies that are based on true stories like Anton Fisher, and you're like, how can something like this happen? But if you really really do your your travels around this country, you see that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of little Antoine Fishers running around, and no one seems to acknowledge that this is even happening. Complex, you have anything you want to add to this?
Yeah. I really hate to kind of go on sort of like the matriarchy kind of rant, but it's like, it's weird, man. Just being observing it all. These are all of the methods and processes on how you keep a strong matriarchy in place, right? There's a certain path that you have to set males on in order for them to maximize on what they're capable of, but in a subservient role with regards to social order, social structure. I mean, you're just by virtue of the fact of being a male in a matriarchy, your potential is capped. And this is what we're getting at. You're looking at wasted potential. You're basically, like you said, what is all the self-improvement for? You know, what's it all for? It's not literally to pursue becoming like a titan in industry. Okay, it's like anytime you shout out to Wacky and MOT for the dating coach angle on it. It's never we're never talking about, well, unless you're listening to the Brain Trust, we're never exploring the potentialities of things with the sole purpose of maximization. It's just not something that's in the cards for men, because see, when you do that, you surpass the matriarch, the higher order of the mate. You surpass it. Look, when you become a Bezos, you become a Musk, you become a Steve Jobs, you become a Robert F. Smith. When you become those people, like, you are at the top of the mountain. Mm-hmm. You see, so if we're not pushing for that, then what are you pushing for? You're pushing for grooming males to be the best that they could be for us. And by us, I'm meaning, the guardians of the social order, if you will.
Yeah, man.
And the thing is, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, MOT.
No, I'm like, you have to understand this. Being a wife to one person is much easier if you just want to sit around and just benefit. All you have to do is raise productive kids. Boom. You're good for a lifetime, right? And it's not like other cultures are not doing this. They clearly are. But it's just that there's something else at play here, because there's a lot of people who take a lot of joy in watching black men fail. They take a lot of joy in watching these kids sputter out at 16, 17 years old, so they get mad enough and want to kill somebody. There's a lot of people who get a lot of joy out of it. It's a lot of people, man, and it's like, you look around and it's like, can anybody else see what I'm seeing? And it's like, why on earth is this stuff even allowed to go on? And like, most of these people who defend this actual process have the nerve to call themselves pro-black while doing it. We have to knock down this notion that somehow you can be pro-black and matriarchal at the same time. There ain't no way in the hell you can be pro-black and matriarchal at the same time.
You can be pro-black matriarchy.
Yeah. I mean, but that's the deal.
Yeah, Black Who Strikes has joined us. What's going on, brother? You have anything you want to add to this?
Hey, how you brothers doing this evening?
Your mic is
very
great. Your mic, your connection is borging out. I don't know if you're far away from your router or
oh geez.
Oh, you sound good now, so go ahead.
I sound good now? Okay, my bad. It's a pleasure to meet with you gentlemen this evening. Mm-hmm. You guys mentioned, one of you mentioned the movie Anton Fisher.
Yeah, I did.
The best and sadly the worst scene in that movie, to me at least, ironically, was the scene where he meets his dead father's family. Mm-hmm. This is a guy who had been put in the system, had been abused for his entire childhood and on into becoming a young adult. Joins the military, still struggling mentally and emotionally with his past. Finally gets the help he needs to try to come to terms with what he has endured. And just out of nowhere, almost, he almost by accident discovers that he has this wonderful family that he never knew anything about, who apparently had attempted to find him at some point, but was unable to. And I always think about, the mother, I don't know if she was a crack addicted mother. There was some kind of drug problem. And the thing that always would enrage me in thinking about that was, why didn't she give that boy to his father's people? And I think one of the things that we as Black men should do, and I almost think must do, is to begin a sort of propaganda program where we begin to demand that our sons are given to their fathers, irrespective of whatever circumstance the father may be in, or what the claims is about him, whatever shortcomings he have. We would be better off collectively if there were compulsory, if we had a society where the boys were given automatically to the fathers. I think that would compel maybe better character upon their fathers, realizing that they would have to have that responsibility, that they can't just willy-nilly shoot up the club and some random woman and be able to not have to bear the responsibility of raising a child.
Yeah, I think you're onto something, because we were talking about this last night. This should be a technological application that allows us to invest into disenfranchised Black males, where we can basically crowdfund their opportunities, and we can have a deeper view, a more focused view on the progress of that Black male subject. Because what's happening here is you have people taking their sons, and basically use them as a tax write-off. I think, what do you get, $1,200 per child or something like that? When you do your taxes, and people are basically just shuffling this little boy around. And the conversation that we had yesterday about mentorship was that the ones who did not get the mentorship, man, got lost. This is, and they're adults now. This is real. No direction, no nothing, and no one cared. And then they find themselves in the manosphere, looking for answers, and falsely accused of being an incel, falsely accused of being,
non-select,
a failure, right? All of these pejorative terms that are really not necessary, really not helping. It's not helping the problem, especially when they hit adulthood and you don't have the proper mentorship to actually guide you into a lucrative career that could be long-term. And people are looking like, he's not on my level. He doesn't have the it factor. Well, you wouldn't have the it factor either if you were a victim of subordination. You wouldn't have it either.
I always go around social media and speak about how a lot of people need to seek a therapist. And a lot of people start laughing when I say, I guess maybe how I articulated something, but I'm very serious when I state that, for the same reasons that you just explained, Mike. Just based upon certain statements and certain arguments that you hear or see people make in this Black manosphere, you could tell that they've been highly traumatized. So these people are in desperate need of therapy or some psychological help, and we have to embrace that. mental help or, psychological treatment or therapy, it's not that much, embraced within so-called Black America, which is a bad thing. Because I've seen it did wonders. Okay. I've literally known people who suffer from mental illness, and a few years of therapy, they did a 360 turn and their life improved. So I've seen it with my own eyes. And I just said to myself, if more so-called Black males seek the proper therapy or the psychological treatment, within a few years, it'll do wonders for them.
But I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if we can say psychological treatment here, right? Because they haven't been clinically diagnosed. And a lot of the times it's just a matter of having a conversation with another Black man, especially one that's older.
I mean, I get it. Hold on. I mean, I get it. Certain people not clinically diagnosed, but sometimes I guess it's just me, in my opinion. It's like, when certain conversations that I have with people, I could tell that there's something's not right in their mind. Not to insult them, but it's just that I see it, that there's something wrong mentally. That's why I say that. But I could be wrong. I don't know.
No, I don't think you're wrong. But I think what you got to do is, I think what we're trying to do is actually address the root cause. And that something that's wrong that you're speaking to, Wacky. Hold on, that's my daughter on our electric scooter there. So that's something that's wrong, right? It is this feeling. It's years of knowing deep inside, like where you could actually go, like what you have the potential to do, some of the thoughts and ideas, things that you want to do, and then being told that, and being raised in an environment that limits all of that, that puts a cap on it, that says you're crazy when you say, you know what, I want to be a race car driver. You're crazy, if you want to, I don't know, fill in the blank. Okay. You see, so there's a mental, it's kind of like a mental beat down, a soft beat down that you get from the time you're little. Okay. You're encouraged to sacrifice your body out on the football field. That's fine. Do everything that you can to be able to get up and dunk on a 10-foot rim. Stuff like that. I mean, that's okay, because ultimately at the end of the day, we want you to do that so that you can bring the bacon home, get mama a new home.
Yeah, that's a good point that you bring up, that they're sacrificing their physical bodies and not for very little short ROI. And that seems to be the case for promiscuity as well, where the Black male today is just is how many chicks he got, how many women he slayed, and
he's a buck.
How much attention he's getting, how much swag he has, all of these non-essential things that he's being that he's projecting out there. Where you come to the Black Brain Trust, we're looking at you like, I don't know about that, fam. We doing some borderline stuff over here, man. Check the catalog, man. Check the catalog. We doing some borderline stuff. You can't just come over here and say something like that and think that that's going to work against productive men.
No.
And so the idea here is to, for me, from my observation, I think sticking some of these Black males into circles of productive men is actually can actually be a game changer. Like a Black male congregation. Shout out to MOT. I think MOT has something like that going.
Yeah, well, I did, but that's another story. But yeah,
but you thought in that direction as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, what you have to do is you have to re-socialize these dudes back into actual manhood. You have to re-socialize these guys back into actually thinking about productivity from a familial standpoint rather than a matriarchal standpoint. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, these dudes just have to be re-socialized. I mean, I spent all last week, in Memphis and down in Morton, Mississippi, trying to get people's jobs down there. But if you look at the boys, like most of them are destroyed. I mean, like even like the well-behaved ones, it was just that there was just no method, and all masculinity was whittled down to, can you get a girl? Nobody really cared about intellectual nothing. I mean, it made me so mad, man, that I wanted to just move there and like do something because dude, it's everywhere, and it's from the boomers on down. These dudes are messed up.
MOT, you know, intellectualism is that's a male pursuit, though. You know.
Yeah, it is, and there is really no matriarchal benefit from intellectualism up front. You know, no, there is no Nike deal for the science guy. There isn't.
Right.
So,
Right. Especially now you can, I was at New Balance the other day, man, and they 3D print shoes in the store.
Yeah, New Balance on some next shit.
Yeah, they're on some next level stuff. There's a whole 3D printer machine set up, man, and whatever type of shoe you want, man, in whatever color you want, there's a machine that spins it up right there in your face. Crazy. So the idea of even,
I seen something like that when I was stationed in South Korea, but man, if they got that right now in stores, like, hey man, watch out.
Yeah. I'm a New Balance person myself, because New Balance is a state company. So
585s over here.
Yeah. Which ones?
585s.
Yeah, I'm rocking 574s, and I got some 997s. So, the point that I'm making here is this, man. Someone has to step up and speak truth to power and say, you can't run that swag game on me. I know where that came from. I know who wrote your code. They gave you bad code. They embedded some malware into your platform.
Acme products, man. Acme products.
Oh man.
And it's sad, man, because these dudes actually think that they are what's happening out here, and then you drop them into another context or another country, dudes are lost, man. Because if getting with a girl isn't like the end all and be all for some dudes, they kind of stop evolving after they get there, and they kind of protect their gains by just defending everything that women do once they do get there. Because it's an easy goal to obtain. It's really not that hard to give somebody who shouldn't be having something everything that they want and then claiming dominance. Like, I mean, it's laughable, but that's the way these dudes are, man. And it took them so long of a time to climb that humiliating mountain. Now that they're up there, they kind of don't want to do nothing else, man. That's all they want to do is just be up there, plant the white flag, and just wave hello to everybody at the perceived bottom of it. So it's kind of like, what do you do? But this person don't know that this dude is like a wind-up toy against his own best future interests. But he doesn't care about his future interests. He cares about his current interests. So it's kind of hard to get people to even think like that.
Well,
you can see. I'm sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna make this point. You can see the Black Christian Church, the exile of Black males leaving the last maybe 10 to 15, if not 20 years. I would say it probably started just at a high intensity when Obama came into office, 2008. But you're seeing the steady flow of Black males just constantly leaving these institutions, and they're not seeing any value in them. And then there was no Black brain trust back then, per se, but now you do have it, and you see that probably over 90% of our subscribers are actually Black males in between the ages of 21 to 41. So I think there's something to be said that there's a longing for a structured society or a structured outlook on their their lifestyle. They're seeing this, man, and maybe we should have like a BBT boot camp or something like that, man. In offline mode, man. We just kind of really take cats in together, because we can hold up to 500 people in our Zoom meeting. So we can actually have a congregation offline. It doesn't have to be in the public eye. So we can do things. We just have to come up with the right solutions.
No, I agree wholeheartedly. And, you know, to your point, Mike, I noticed that too. I mean, shout outs to Reigning Woman. You know, there's a few other women that do come through because, you know, I suspect that, you know, they understand the benefits of having, you know, functional men within their culture. You know, so shout out to the very few who do fall through, but I agree. The majority of people who fall through the brain trust they're men.
Yeah.
You know, young men, like you said, around from the ages maybe like 20, 21, up into, let's say, you know, early Gen X age. You know, some older. You know, but that's our main constituency right there. And, you know, and speaking to that longing that you're talking about, again, you know, these are individuals who I would say that throughout their lives at some point, or just all throughout their lives since they were little, they've been raised to be capped, to be limited, right? Like what they should aspire for, they've been told to scale back on it. Right. And then when we start saying, no, we're just basically saying, look, you know the world, understand finance, understand technology, understand all this shit. And we deep dive into all this shit. They start to really see the uncapped view that we should actually be holding, where a geopolitical conversation between two brothers should actually be the order of the day. It shouldn't be something that just happens on a hangout when we spark it up on Wednesdays. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And it shouldn't be predetermined by a hashtag either.
It is?
It should not be.
Oh.
It should not be predetermined by a hashtag with divisive language. Dr. Phoenix has joined us. Good evening, my brother.
What's going on?
Good evening, brothers. Good evening to the panel.
Evening, Dr. Phoenix.
Hello, doctor.
You know, MOT was just saying something a few minutes ago about he was in Mississippi. A couple weeks ago, I told you, brothers, I was traveling and going to some conferences, and I did. And I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and New Orleans, and anyone that's, I don't know if anyone's in the chat from Louisiana. What I saw down there perfectly highlights what MOT was just saying. I was visiting LSU. Anyone's ever been to Baton Rouge? You have basically like this little, I don't even know if I would call it a medium-sized city. I mean, it is what it is. But you go there and you visit you visit LSU, the Baton Rouge campus. You see this massive sprawling campus that pretty much is Baton Rouge. Without LSU, there's no Baton Rouge. And you go on campus and there's no one there. You know, I was part of it was that I was there, and and I'm just kind of going around and seeing how folks are living. And they have the LSU Tiger there at the Baton Rouge campus. And I kid you not, that Tiger probably lives better than 90% of the people, 90% of Black folks in Baton Rouge.
Wow.
We're talking about a Tiger that has I think the space they have for it is like over $1 million. I mean, he gets top tier food, and he gets the best of the best. Meanwhile, you go to where Black folks are at. I mean, I saw some spots that look like shanty towns. And in fact, if you take a flight, because I flew I flew in Baton Rouge. It's more like a little regional airport. It's really small,
Mhm.
and literally that's the northern side of Baton Rouge, and that's where black folks are at. And as soon as I got out the airport, because I remember when I got in, it was late. I must have got in maybe about 12 or something in the evening at night. And you get in, and I was taking an Uber, and as soon as you leave outside the airport area, you're in the area where black folks at, but specifically there's a big oil refinery right outside this airport area, a massive oil refinery. You can't miss it. I mean, you see it on the I think it was the 10, the Interstate 10 or 110 or whatever it is they call it, and I mean, it was just, there's like these smells in the air. You can practically smell the dihydrogen sulfide in the air, and literally you have black folks living right around this place. And on top of the fact, I'm not sure if anyone's aware of just Louisiana, Mississippi, they kind of trade places, and I would kind of throw Milwaukee, Wisconsin into that mix too. But they trade places between having the highest rates of illiterate, underperforming black children, black boys specifically, some of the highest rates of obesity, maternal childhood issues, postpartum issues in the country. Not to mention that Baton Rouge and New Orleans are like the quintessential hotspots in this country for STIs. And it's so obvious when you go there. Black folks and black males are just so wayward and shiftless, for lack of a better term.
Mhm.
And it was kind of shocking, because I I'm in Milwaukee, and I'm like, I didn't think it could get any worse until I went down there.
Mhm.
And it was just a whole nother world.
Mhm.
You walk on this campus. I'm talking about, you have this massive billion-dollar campus that there's construction going on all over the place, and just literally you step 100 feet outside of campus, black folks look like trash. And I've never, it was just, I don't know. I mean, it was kind of shocking, to be honest with you. I mean, I've seen some stuff in my life, but I think just how black folks and black males down there live is insane. I mean, maybe MOT can speak to that. He knows the area pretty well, so I don't know. It was just
Well, it's standard operating procedure. I mean, I'm from there. I grew up around this stuff all my life. Like I didn't even know how much different the world was. Like even going to small towns for like football games and track. Like a couple times we went to like places in Arkansas, like obviously a big city, or Tennessee. Like it was night and day, and once you are kind of brined in them certain circumstances for such a long time, man, those circumstances cap you out pretty fast too.
Mhm.
And if you don't get out of there at a certain point, you're stuck there forever. Like I routinely, every time I go back down south, I have an eye-opening view of how I used to think, talk, walk, and act. All I gotta do is look at the people who were my age who didn't leave, and talking about the same, worse than what you think the manosphere would talk about, but same stuff every day.
Mhm.
If not that, fighting. If not that, beefing. If not that, trying to screw somebody's girl. If not that, complaining about child support, but still mess with the same. And that's the cycle, man. That is the cycle. But it's
you
just
know
that. Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead. No, something was brought to my attention when I was there. So apparently, Louisiana has this program. So if you're native to Louisiana, you was born in Louisiana, they have something called TOPS. I forget what it stands for, but basically, if you're a Louisiana born and raised resident, you get to attend college for free. So
Oh yeah. Oh
yeah,
yeah. That's true.
yeah, so you go there, and I mean, you go to LSU. The problem is, when I was on this LSU campus, I didn't see no black folks. I did it. I really did it. There was a handful of black folks, but for the most part, I didn't really see no black folks there. And the black folks you do see, typically they have a huge Boule population, if you will, down there. There's a massive Boule population, because I mean, when I was just kind of going through the area, I mean, there were, I mean, every other house was like a damn plantation. it was. I mean, even when I got out, even when I was in the airport, and you see like their board of trustees, like most of them were black. Is ironic, and there's such a clear line of demarcation between the haves and the have-nots in at least where I was at in Baton Rouge. It's very clear who has it and who doesn't. And it was, like I said, it was just mind-boggling, and just kind of when you see how the young black men walk around there. I mean, most of these, I mean, many of them I saw couldn't be no more than 16, 17, and they were done. You just see the defeated looks on their faces. They were already done.
And it's hard to even approach them because the fear factor for black male conversing in public spaces, man. I heard you say something about two black people in the classroom, and they're not even speaking to each other. There has to be some form of campaign and outreach that actually has a public discussion about this. We should be on C-SPAN having these sort of discussions, putting it right in people's faces.
Brother, what I see, they're not even getting to the damn classroom. From what I was told and what I saw down there, these I mean, hell, you if you made it to high school, consider yourself lucky.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just that it was just that serious of an issue down there, with just sort of the lack of producing, of having young black males, and even the adult males I saw down there. I can't tell you just how many men old enough to be my father down there that were just doing very menial jobs. It was some real crazy stuff, some practically some driving Miss Daisy stuff going on down there. I mean, it was. No joking, man. It was some real. I ain't never seen nothing like that. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm a man, been all over the world a few times, and yeah, that was some crazy stuff I saw down there. I mean, I've never seen anything like that.
I just saw Rollin Martin post, about, I think it was in Louisiana where, or no, maybe it was Texas. I guess it was a state trooper or something like that on a horseback, having this black man with a noose around his neck, man.
It was Texas. It was Texas.
That was in Texas.
This is outrageous, man. There has to. How come the manosphere isn't talking about this more? Why are they so focused on cooking people, like they're cannibals or something?
You know what? I was actually sent a video, a picture, a photo the other day from someone I know that's in the Baton Rouge area, and as she was saying, literally this picture she sent, and it was literally a picture of a young black male dressed up in a gorilla outfit, just dancing. And she called me and she's telling me, like, yeah, look at this. This guy is literally out here dancing, and white folks are literally dropping money for him to dance a jig, dressed up like a gorilla.
Dance, shine, dance.
Yeah, and I mean, and this is what we have reduced black males to.
Well, look at Bobby Shmurda, right? He got on the table and dancing in front of all those white executives, doing the whatever it was that he was doing on the table.
The money dance.
Yeah.
And ended up in jail.
And those same executives did not even bother to pay for his legal team.
Nope.
And again, I see this fairly regularly where I'm at. I've seen this in my travels, and even just in the travels I did a couple weeks ago. Just kind of being in the South and just kind of seeing how it is. I mean, it's ironic because I think a lot of folks think about the South, and first thing they think of like Atlanta, but really once you get outside of Atlanta, you go to some of these neighboring states. Black folks live, especially the ones that are on the Gulf states. I mean, black folks are really in a bad way, and it's very clear that the black males in these areas are certainly overrepresented in levels of dysfunction and non-productivity.
I wonder how much of an impact Katrina was in that area, because maybe the problem was always there, and then Katrina kind of exacerbated it.
I would
No.
say,
No, I mean, the problem is the culture down there, man. Like, that stuff been like that way forever. Like, even before Hurricane Katrina, it was still bad. I mean, the only thing what Hurricane Katrina did was start spreading these people into environments they were never at. Like, there was a lot of people from New Orleans after Katrina who ended up in Colorado.
Wow.
And, oh, yeah.
And I was in Denver a couple years ago. That's funny.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. We got 80 people watching. It's only 40 likes. If you're not going to participate in the chat, please hit the like button. It's greatly appreciated.
I mean,
Yeah, you know, let's clear up something. We're talking about the actual issues because we see the problems and we won't change. We're not trying to talk about the issues and prescribe sex to this particular topic of discussion and think that that's going to solve it. You know, we really want to see better things out of what we see. And the first thing we have to do is pretty much point it out and talk about it, and then try to address it after that. So, you know how some people get a hold of this stuff and try to do what they do with it. So,
yeah, and you can't. You know, the discussions need to be have strictly for discovery reasons, right? Not to find convenient reasons for non-action once you discover what the problem is.
Well, I think this kind of goes to what we saw, what happened over the last few days with the Rich Paul situation and the NCAA requiring, you know, agents to have degrees. And, you know, there was this massive uproar about, oh, no, this is targeting, quote, people of color and minorities and all of this stuff. I mean, again, the NCAA makes its money. It exists. Why? Because black people, black men have allowed them to turn their sons into commodities. And these folks have built entire industries around it, and they protect those industries. So the things that the very industries that they built using your sons as commodities, they protect it, but then black folks complain when they exercise power and put in rules that are designed to make sure that they maintain power in the very industries that they built. Power by definition excludes people. And I don't understand for the life of me, why the hell do black people and black men specifically really believe that you're going to do better than them in the industries that they built for themselves?
Dr. Phoenix, let me just touch on the Rich Paul thing. For those of you who don't know, there was a top prospect who initially committed to Syracuse. Okay. Rich Paul met with him, and through meeting with him, you meet with an agent or anything like that, that kind of nullifies your NCAA eligibility. But what Rich Paul did was he got this dude an internship at New Balance, right? So for that 1 year of ineligibility where he wouldn't be able to play basketball, it was like, well, look, you can go intern over at, and the internship is actually it's a paid internship to the tune of $1 million, by the way. And so he's going to intern for a year and then basically train and then declare for the draft after his 1 year, that 1 year window has passed. So within that 1 year where he won't be playing basketball, he'll be making $1 million for an internship with New Balance. And then that'll then convert over into a full-on marketing deal once he hits the NBA. And see, that's what we're talking about here, is actually looking and leveraging opportunities that work to your advantage and in your favor. Yeah. There's really no good reason why so many brothers should be breaking their backs to play for universities for free, especially when you're talking about limited opportunities. And then, you know, the NBA has a sum total of what, I think 400 and something players.
600.
That could be or something like that. Yeah. At any given time, that could be signed to contracts, you see. So the pickings are already slim. And what you're going to do is you're actually going to give a lot of what you have early on to a university that says, well, yeah, you're getting an education. You're getting a free education. Well, not free, right? But that's what you're playing for. In exchange for this, you get this, you know, but they also totally limit what you're able to do during that time. So even if you're playing sports, it's not as if you can't do something outside and work, or, you know, I see a college athlete and I say, oh, well, you know, hey, let me get behind this dude and maybe I can set up some sort of marketing partnership with him. No, NCAA won't allow it. You know what I mean? So we have to look at things that work to our advantage. And that's really what that whole Rich Paul rule was about, because once he did that, the NCAA tried to flip some rule now about like eligibility requirements and all this kind of stuff and meeting with agents. And it's a bunch of BS, man.
Yeah.
It is a bunch of BS, but my point in this matter is simply that as a whole, black men did not create this system. We did not create the NBA. We did not create the NFL. Hell, we didn't create the MLB, but we did have the Negro Leagues. And when the last time you heard about a black player coming up out of the MLB? I mean, again, I mean, we're trying to find ways to get them to acquiesce to our demands and systems that they created. I just, you know, it's the same thing in healthcare. Black folks complain all the time about we don't get the standard of care, which is true. We don't get the standard of care. However, how many hospitals did we have prior to 1960? How many black hospitals did we have? Hell, HBCUs used to have hospitals associated with them, but we don't see that anymore. You couldn't even get a room full of black physicians and nurses together to build a damn hospital if you can get them to all talk to each other.
You know, the same could be said, Dr. Phoenix, for the financial services industries, right? At one point, how many black banks, man, littered Chicago?
Man, there were at the height when I was a kid growing up, man, there were dozens.
Okay, you know, I'm intimately aware about black banks. I bank with one in Chicago. My wife, her godmother, so their family founded Seaway Bank, who ended up selling.
I got my first bank account that was at Seaway Bank. They used to have one on Stony Island.
On Stony Island, yeah. So you know, they ended up. There you go. Was it like about 3 years ago? They sold the remaining. I think.
Yeah.
Whoever acquired them. You know. So then when we start talking about, you know, when we start talking about like, well, where do black folks get? Where are we gonna get the money to do these types of things? And well, shit. You know, we have a really bad habit of completely throwing away the goddamn institutions that would facilitate a lot of this shit.
Or supporting the people who could actually reinvigorate this type of stuff.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We fell too in love with being included and accepted by the great society, to the point that we feel that success is just working for them. And I'm not saying don't work for anybody that's Caucasian or that's of another race, but just to have this one picture that the only way to success is to work for another person who just happened to be Caucasian, and just to be, and success is being included in their, you know, in their environment where we can create our own. That's because we have that way of thinking. Therefore, you have that situation with Rich Paul and the NCAA and other situations that's just like it. We
wacky.
See.
Well, wacky. The ice is colder, bro.
Exactly.
I mean, again, I think Mike said it earlier. You brothers were talking about it earlier. I mean, I mean, if we truly want things like, for example, we want healthcare that best reflect our interests, where we're, you know, you go there, you don't get told one thing by your physician or a nurse, and then a white person get told something else. You know, you want healthcare, for example, that does reflect who we are, that fundamentally respects us as people, as humans. But yet we make the investments we did make decades ago, we gave that up in favor of integration. And even now in this day and age, let's just keep it real. I mean, you can't say the word cure these days. Well, you can say, you just can't say it in the aspect of, well, I cured XYZ disease. You can't say that, because that's owned by white folks, the AMA, Big Pharma. You can't say that. However, we think about how long does it take to create a physician? It takes roughly about 13 to 15 years to create a physician. It takes about, if you want someone to be a nurse practitioner or PA, it takes about, if for an MP, it's about 8 years or so, assuming that they go directly through, but most people don't. So about 8 to 9 years. A PA, about 7, 8 years. So a considerable amount of time that people are going to spend getting educated. But again, going back to what you guys said earlier, these are investments we have to make in boys, in black males. And let's just be frank here, in boys, we have to make these investments. These foundations have to be laid, which goes back to the discussion from last night. These foundations have to be laid in childhood. And it has to be laid by competent, functional, mentally sane people. Because again, we have a number of issues of undiagnosed mental health disorders in Black society. And unfortunately, these are the folks who tend to procreate and tend to keep the chaos going in society. And as a people, as men, as Black men, our fundamental responsibility should be into vetting the people that you keep around you, vetting the people in your circle, vetting the people in your spaces, vetting the women that you're with. And so these stories we see of all these young Black males, 17, 18, 20 some years old, they're getting caught up. They're getting caught up with women that just saw them as nothing more than a paycheck, an ATM, a commodity. And obviously you see them on YouTube. And they talk about whatever it is they talk about. But again, these were men, these are now men who are broken, but were once young boys that were broken.
And sometimes some of them may not be redeemable. You see them hosting hangouts, and they're cooking people, they're cannibals, they're they're billy goats and farm animals, and they're all over the place, man. And they swear that they're right. They run behind hashtags. They claim all these things, and
but with nothing to show for it, Mike. But with nothing to show for it.
Well, that's to be understood, because that's the premise that they have taken. They're gonna fight the oppressor from behind their keyboard without putting boots on the ground, and not understand that the guys like us on the panel and part of the Black Brain Trust, man, we're really putting boots on the ground. I told you guys Sunday on guerrilla farming.
For real.
Guerrilla farming. I was out there. I see how people move. I see the sort of support that everybody else is trying to contribute. So, except for these guys, these other guys, they're never out there.
I don't see them empty lots being turned into gardens, man. I don't see them empty lots producing. I don't see any urban farming practices being carried out on all these empty lots and these blighted spaces in Black communities. I don't see something coming out of this nothingness.
Well, Ulysses, that's because if we were trying to do that, the Black woman would team up with the white man to try to stop us. This is the type of excuse that I would hear when I would hear brothers like you bring up these great points and these great arguments. They make up these weak excuses.
And they get a lot of people following that line too, man.
Yeah, shout out to the brother Paul Bryan in the chat. I agree with you, brother. That is true. When you're in healthcare is a special place, because if you want to know everything that's going on in society, healthcare is the convergence of that. You see everything that's wrong. From cradle to grave, you see everything that's wrong. I can't name you the number of times, folks have passed on me, and Black families don't have wills, don't have a living will. Everything gets in the estate is in everyone's trying to get a piece of the estate. I don't know how many, for the last couple of years, I've tried to do my best to try to, just make some of these issues known, because again, you know, when you are in healthcare and, you know, people see you got a little title, whatever, you know, folks come to you and tell you stuff. They just talk to you, you know, with respect to what you said, brother Paul. But, you know, again, one of the things that happens is that, yeah, you know, when you hear these things, you know, folks talk to me all the time about, you know, how they were treated, how their brother was treated, mother was treated, whatever the case may be. And so again, you know, I think as I get older, it does become more of an insular thing where I just started to just focus on me, because I just kind of get to the point where, like, you know, folks tell me stuff, but I don't really see no real action. You know, I can't even get folks with even more credentials than me to come, you know, to get on board to doing things like, you know, trying to get together, put hospitals together, do something like an urgent care clinic. That was what it was in Baton Rouge. There were no hospitals in Baton Rouge. Like where I was at in the LSU, there were no hospitals at all.
They
In
cut
fact,
funding.
you would have had to travel at least a good 20, 30 minutes, and that's with a vehicle to get to a hospital. There were urgent care centers all over the place, but there were no hospitals. So again, these are areas where you clearly have a need, but it's not being met.
Also, the lack of skill set would contribute to the lack of it being met. For you know, you're like you and I MOT spoke upon earlier that 16, 17 they're already defeated. Waste of human capital, and that's what this sort of social order has brought us: waste of human capital, male human capital, and then blame those males for being wasteful when you know they were cultivated to be wasteful. You know, it's frustrating because you hear these other pundits on in the manosphere spouting off as if, you know, they have a solution, and when they're asked about a solution, a strategy, they're you know, you hear crickets.
Well, the check's got to get cut first.
Yeah.
Oh,
Cut the check. Hey, man,
Come
just
on,
cut
Mike.
the check.
We're putting the cart before the horse here, okay? You know.
The cart before the goat.
I'm sorry. The cart before the billy goat. Yeah, you're right.
Or Mike, you might hear a response when someone says, "Well, I'm not here for the collective. I'm an individual. I'm only for the individual." But yet they'll complain about the collective. They'll complain about the collective, but when it comes to, you know, what solutions do you have to help the collective? Well, hey, I'm only for the individual. I'm not here to help the collective. Then why complain about them?
Yeah, we live in that sort of dichotomy, man. I think going forward, and we'll end this at 10:45. I think going forward, if you're gonna talk, you got to have a solution to back it up, man. You can't sit up here and say to be more like men, and we just need to, you know, assert ourselves as men in an imposing environment. How do you explain those two teenagers that Dr. Phoenix MOT saw down south, defeated, not even old enough to vote yet, defeated? You're gonna go to war with that? I don't think so. I don't even think the Salvation Army would enlist those guys to ring the bells, you know, to protect the clothes and stuff like that. So this is a crisis, and you know, people are not taking it seriously in the manosphere. This is supposed to be the manosphere. I don't even think we have a manosphere anymore, based on some of the activities I've saw since you know, the last couple of days, if not the last few weeks. What a disaster this place has been.
You know that hangout you brothers did last week about the whole ADOS thing. I guess that comment you made or whatever over at the other brothers channel. You know, I guess it must have triggered the whole damn because I've seen a number of videos pop up all over the place over the last few days.
I was just talking about that with somebody early this morning on the phone, man, and we were conversing about that, and I said, look at all the controversy comes from my comment,
man.
But no one wants to bring the black.
Well, Mike, can you for clarity, man, because I didn't hear it. I mean, I know about it obviously, but I didn't hear like the comment that you made and the context in which it was made. Can you just revisit that real quick here?
Oh, the comment was basically we should be less worried about Talib Kweli and more worried about the weaponization of the hashtag itself against non ADOS people.
And there was hairs being split over your use of the word weaponize as it relates to the term ADOS, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean that laser focus on 140 characters seems to be the priority, whereas having this sort of discussion about the black male subordination and at the height of a matriarchal society, that's not a concern.
No. I mean, because
concern.
the concern was that you used the word weaponize. We really need to address this. We need to go there, and we need to understand that, perception does matter. No, context doesn't. Understanding the usage of words doesn't. You know what I mean? No, we'll abandon all of that because there was a bigger point that you were trying to make. And we're gonna get away from that bigger point because Mike, you used the word weaponize.
Mm-hmm. Well, shout out to Edward Anderson. That's our bro, man. We've been rocking with him for years. My initial point, man, is not to actually attack him as a content creator, but the overall movement needs to have some form of self-reflection and introspective on some of the more pertinent issues, such as what we're talking about right now. I'm not seeing that across any of the content creators' platforms.
You know what's so funny about this ADOS movement is that the LGBT community is one step ahead of them when it comes to getting this gay reparations. And I don't see that many people within this ADOS movement saying anything about that.
Because you need an organized front, brother. You cannot fight a war with a bunch of degenerates and dysfunctional ass people. You can't. I can't. No general leads soldiers onto the battlefield and they can't all be in lockstep.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem is that you have all these folks that come on with all these divergent viewpoints, all these various ways that we can distract and deflect from what really needs to be done, what really needs to be said. Because you got some guys want to defend their mamas, you got some guys want to act like they're better than other guys because I can get more women than you and everything else. But when it comes down to being productive, industrious black men, it's wholesale failure. And the sad part about it is that I see this from folks. I've seen this from folks that actually, in all honesty, I don't talk, I don't know these folks or nothing like that. But just given some of their backgrounds, they know what's up. I don't even think black folks, we have these conversations on YouTube. Folks have these conversations in Mentorship. Black folks just really don't know the rabbit hole we're in. We really don't know how deep this rabbit hole goes.
Mm-hmm. This is the last go around.
I mean, we're talking about 2050. What I'm seeing, black folks lucky they got another decade.
Yeah. I would say so too. I mean, based on your observations, based on you and MOT's observations of the South recently, and some of the statistics that we've been reading, that window of opportunity may soon close after Tangerine Tyrant leaves the White House.
Brother, I was meeting with people from some of the top schools, some of the top universities in the country that led over in the past year.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm telling you, man, I remember last summer I was invited out. It was for a PhD. I was invited out as a guest to University of Wisconsin-Madison. And I sat in on some of the meetings with the director of this particular PhD program. And she had her students, I'm sitting on her students giving their reports for the week or whatever. And I kid you not, brother, there were Asians, I'm talking about from the mainland, kids baby faced as hell, already got master's degrees and everything else, probably no older than 23, 24 years old. already in PhD programs.
Mm-hmm.
And these are the folks that are gonna, these are the folks that Black people will be answering to in the next 10 years.
If they even get the opportunity to answer to anybody at that point.
I mean, again, I mean, you're right.
Yeah, the way we're seeing this, complex design, Paul Bryant, we talked about this ad nauseum, but if you don't even have the literacy to even fill out these applications on LinkedIn, and LinkedIn is just a single click or 2 clicks, I can guarantee you right now, you're not even going to have a conversation with these people from a workforce perspective. A lot of these emerging economies in the fourth industrialized markets, most of your Black Americans are not prepared for these roles.
And and Mike, because I don't want to get too wrapped up in comments in the chat, but you do need to address them because it pertains to what we're talking about. This notion or this idea that a quote unquote like a non-ADOS like having some sort of say or some sort of something with regards to like ADOS, right? I mean, I'm gonna try to choose my words very carefully here. So given what you just said, right, and the nature of what fourth industrialization is going to do to the entire planet, okay, you can't have an insular view of the world. Okay, like you just can't. You really can't. It's not, everything's globalized. Everything goes 5G. Everything's gonna be connected. Everything's gonna be through your phone. Things, micro payments go across the waters. I mean, this is the world that we actually live in. Mm-hmm. There is no, we're gonna get this and then we're gonna go cornering off a section of the United States and we're gonna build Wakanda. Like that's not how this works. What has to, if you want anything productive, if you want anything progressive to come out of this reparations discussion, you need to think about a global application of that shit. And you know what that means too? You might have to talk to some non-ADOS people. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna leave it there, man, because I'm gonna start getting pissed.
Let's keep the focus on the subordination of the Black male and how this is going to impact him.
I wanted to add to that in relation to the chat. Into the discussion. Excuse me. We live in a world that it is all globalized. There is no getting around it. The moment you step a foot on a college campus, you will see that. Mm-hmm. It can be some small 4-year university in the middle of nowhere in the US, and you will still see the global impact of just of how these systems are functioning. These systems are responding to the globalization of everything. Mm-hmm. And for Black males, for Black males, most of them have never even been outside of that little 3-4 block radius of their neighborhood.
Yeah, Ice Cube never left his neighborhood, his zip code until he was 21 or something like that.
Dude, there's people in LA that have never gone to the beach, fam.
Years ago when I first got out of the military, man, I did this program. I had this fellowship with this place, with this think tank. But anyhow, so they did this one summer program with kids. This was in Chicago, and literally these kids had never been to downtown Chicago. And I was with some of these kids. These were high school age kids. I figured they were like 16, 17, something like that. And just interacting with them and just seeing like how just going to downtown Chicago was just like this foreign experience for them. And for the average Black male, this is their everyday lived experience. Just the ability to venture beyond that neighborhood you grew up in is an adventure in itself.
Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead, bro. Go ahead.
I mean, I live in New York City, and there's tons of so-called Black people that haven't even been to Times Square. And
Wow.
Times Square is only a $2.75 train ride away. You know, I'm laughing, but it's sad.
Yeah, no, it's the same thing with
Facts.
Chicago.
Just
You can go to
about say the
Chicago.
very same
It's
thing.
like a $2.50 train ride to downtown Chicago. Have you in downtown Chicago? Take the red line. Have you in downtown Chicago in like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I've been to downtown Chicago, and I'm from New York. You know, it's.
You
But
know, like I said, I
oh,
was about to say the very same exact thing. There are black people in New York City. Granted, New York City is the largest city in America. There are black people who don't travel between the boroughs. So I have met black people who have never left the borough of Brooklyn a day in their life. Just
Brooklyn
let
all
that
day,
sink
son.
in. Let that sink in. Never left the borough of Brooklyn a day in their life. There are black people who live in Harlem who've never been to Brooklyn. They may go to the Bronx, but they've never been to Brooklyn or to Queens, never been to Staten Island. Hey, Brother Nagone put out the stat, 80, 88% or 89% of American citizens don't even own a passport. That's of all ethnicities. Travel is just not a part in the mindset of America. So
Mhm.
I'm sorry, my God.
No, finish your statement. I'll come right behind you.
Okay, so um, really quick, I just want to remind us something that MOT said. Do not allow the conversation to get hijacked by people who don't really have, who are not on the same intellectual level as you are. With that said,
Mhm.
we're talking about, I believe the topic is black men and matriarchy and the youth. So I would just say, let's keep the focus of the conversation there. Leave all that talk about, you know, this hashtag and that hashtag. Leave all of that talk for when the conversation shifts there. Don't let anyone in the chat room direct our conversation.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. You brought up about people not having the ability to, or not the willingness to leave, and maybe that might be a part of whether or not um, they eat today, or they decide to go down to Times Square. But my major concern here initially was that the subordination of the black male could be, the very Achilles heel for the trajectory of where it's supposed to go, and between now and 2050. Like Dr. Phoenix was saying just a few minutes ago, you may not even have to 2030, especially based on some of the World Economic Forum statistics shows that a lot of these low hanging fruit opportunities will be replaced with automation. So what do you do then? If they're 16, 17, 18 looking wayward and looking defeated down in the South, um, I don't know. You may have early mortalities in the black community. Not even due to violence, just due to the fact that may not reach 40.
You,
I mean, it's
Mike,
already
it's funny you
happening,
say
brother.
that because you could
It
say
is
that
already
about
happening.
violence, right? But mindset and culture needs to change. You know, when you look at
Mhm,
the majority when you look at the majority of black people,
mhm,
they do not have the skill set to survive in the fourth industrial revolution.
mhm,
The culture and mindset does not support culture of change.
mhm,
It's not. So it's not about blame or anything like that. So I hear the constant focus about um, police brutality.
mhm.
93% of all black people in America who are actually killed are killed by other black people. So my point here is look in the mirror and things have to change. So we were talking about mentorship. So if more black youth had mentorship, okay, so we had my partners and I had a weekly business meeting. So we went out to one of the mini malls that we either own or have a renovation contract with. So dudes are coming up and ask, I'm trying to find some work, I'm a plumber or I'm an electrician, I'm a carpenter, and the way these guys speak and they talk, because if you cannot even express yourself, how do you expect yourself to gain employment when you're speaking like slavery ended yesterday? So my point here is, maybe had these gentlemen had some proper mentorship at a younger age, things would have turned out differently for them. Okay, so if they could have expressed or have the ability to express themselves better, maybe they then would have had more success in life and would have had a mindset to maybe one day themselves become a contractor instead of just trying to walk up and say, "Hey, can I have a job?" You follow me? So it's more than just looking at things from a base street level. So I believe you started this conversation about mentorship and Black youth and how matriarchy has basically stunted their intellectual growth. Clearly, because it's something that I see when I'm in these neighborhoods where we're dealing with lower ends of the socioeconomic strata, which the reality is that's where most Black people occupy.
It could be a permanent space as well for the foreseeable future. Reason why we talk about 2050, 2053, 2055 is because that's going to determine what's going to happen come 2100. They're already talking about 2080 to 2100 is going to be the African century. You may have a whole lot of Black male population at that point. Due to the fact that there's nothing available for them. And why would a Black woman want to marry a Black male who can't provide anything for them?
Well, Mike, I don't know if my voice is coming in okay. I'm on.
We can hear you. We can hear you clearly, brother. Go right ahead.
I didn't mean to jump in like that, but when you speak of 2050, 2080, and even as far as 2100, you spoke earlier of trajectory, and it's really difficult to ascertain trajectory when you're only using two variables, especially when you consider that the trajectory is not a straight line. You're dealing with exponents, perhaps even, square roots. So we're looking at a curvature. And so these people are trying to plot a trajectory with only 2 points. And this is the reason why they don't really foresee the future that we foresee. And they're under the impression that they have more time than they actually do. And they're under an impression that, that the reality that they're living in will persist, into the foreseeable future. And I think that's where the breakdown is, that, people not really taking in consideration that things are actually ramping up exponentially, with the strides that are happening as far as, technology and computing, quantum computing and automation. It's just going to make things move exponentially faster than what they have been in the future.
And they'll be left out of a job. Right now, I mean, Uber, people are driving for Uber and Lyft. But what happens when Uber and Lyft decides 10 years from now that, we're going to start rolling these vehicles off the line and
Facts.
Oh,
let me say something. In New York City, there's a nonprofit organization / school called Promiscuity. I think they're located in the Bronx, and there's also a building located in Connecticut, Stamford, Connecticut, and I think a few years ago one opened in Miami, Florida. So this nonprofit organization / school, it actually teaches people within the inner city to be computer literate and actually trains them to be IT technician, and actually pays for a person taking the A+ exam in order to be licensed as a IT technician.
Certification.
Certification. Certification. But I would tell something, brothers, about this organization, and it's free. People can just go in there for free All they have to do is, run a employment check on them, and it's based upon a person's income. If a person make underneath a specific income, that person can enroll for free. And when I tell certain black members who are unemployed, desperately looking for a job, and have little to no skills whatsoever, these certain black males that I come across suddenly have this thinking that it's some conspiracy
Yeah.
that somebody purposely put in the school there.
Mhm.
It's like, excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm talking faster than I'm thinking. Okay, these people believe that it's impossible
Mhm.
for them to get inside STEM or be in IT.
Mhm.
And I would hear certain brothers make this statement that, oh, this is for white people, it's not for us. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, what in the world? It's directed towards you because it's directed towards people from the inner city to go there and develop specific skills. It's for you.
Yeah, they have one in every urban city. Anywhere there's a predominantly black and brown population, and the income per capita is at a certain rate. They have those programs available. But to your point, um, those programs are not being taken advantage of at the least. One of the first things that also needs to be taken into consideration, or in addition to what you're saying, is brothers need to go out there and get their queries expunged. Go hire a lawyer, spend that, 500, $700, or go find a prepaid lawyer and have them write up, or draft up some form of documentation that states you've done your time, and this record that of yours is actually impacting your ability to apply for jobs. When,
Exactly.
especially if you've been on the straight and narrow the last presidential cycle. That should never happen. It violates your civil code. You have the ability now to expunge your query. So no private institution could ever look at your record. When they look at your record, it's going to say non-available or NA. The only ones who can see your record is the federal government. So if you try to apply for a federal job, then they'll see it. But in terms of Bank of America and all these other places, they can't see your record.
And Mike, speaking of what I just said about Perscalis, I step when I step inside one of the buildings,
Mhm.
you know what I see? I see a lot of foreigners there taking advantage of these programs. People that
That's the
could
only ones
barely
who can.
speak English.
Yeah, that's the only ones who can, because they have they have the literacy to do so. A lot of Iraqis came to the United States. Iraq has some of the highest literacy rates in the Middle East. Same thing in Iran. There's a lot of nuclear scientists in Iran. They can't work right now because of the sanctions. Where do you think those people are going to go?
You know,
Go ahead, Dr. Phoenix.
yeah, to go back to what the brother Paul Bryant said earlier, um, the inability for black males to escape the areas they live in is subordination. It is a method of getting them to submit. Because again, if all you know is just this little 4-block radius where you grew up at, you live and die in that area. Again, you put them in these other environments, these things are foreign. You put them around these other people, these things are blasphemous.
Mhm.
And so again, if they're raised to say, oh well, this is white folks thinking, only white folks do this, black folks don't do this, black folks talk this way, white folks talk another way.
Mhm.
White folks do these jobs, we do this job. Again, because why? Because by definition, if you keep them within these areas, you limit everything about them. You stunt their growth.
And that is the problem right there. You hear Brother Nagone, the consigliere, much respect due. He always mentions the Art of War, written by General Sun Tzu. I I have a copy of The Art of War. I have read it many times. And one of the things that Sun Tzu mentions, all battles are won and lost in the mind before they are ever fought. So when you limit yourself, you are losing your battle before you ever start. So once you start to think, this is how white people talk, this is how black people talk, this is what white people do. I'm black, I can't do this, I can't do that. The system, this and this, there are roadblocks in the way, and they don't want this, and they can't. They. I can, I can, I can, I can't. Then you never will. You literally create a self-fulfilling prophecy for yourself within your own mind. Then you set yourself up for failure along the way, and then you point the finger. Oh, this isn't they did not want me to succeed anyway. Listen, no one is denying the system that we live in. No one is denying the history of everything that has happened. None of us will. But at the end of the day, what I personally am saying, so what? Get on with it. What are you doing now to create the reality that you want to see? I advocate a strict meritocracy. All right. So if for those who want to be the best and who want to succeed, my opinion, only my opinion, not necessarily shared by everyone who contributes to the Black Brain Trust. So I can only speak for myself. The focus should be the best and the brightest, and you start there. That's who you can work with now. You cannot work with the majority now. They are not positioned to do anything now. So you work now with those who are able and can produce now, so that they can put themselves into positions where they can help others. Okay, that should be the focus, because the last time I checked, that's how that's how it has always been done through history. Again, I'm a student of history. I don't deal in the currency of hope. So if you're unwilling to start with your best and your brightest, every building, as I've said, every building is built on a foundation. You do not walk up day one and then you're in the penthouse. It does not work that way. You have to have a foundation. So when you set yourself up for failure, say I can't do this and I can't do that. Not saying it's going to be easy, but if your mindset is not one that is tailored and structured for success, you will never have success, and you cannot limit yourself. IDIC, infinite diversity and infinite complexity. That's all I got.
Who was next? I think I think Super Triz might have went.
Well, I think one of the things that we have to embrace in order to kind of move away from subordination of young Black men is that you have to be willing to embrace leadership, and that starts at a young age with accountability for not only yourself but others around you. And you know when you see something that you feel is wrong, to actually be vocal about it and say, hey, we need to look at doing something else. And a lot of people, especially within the Black community, find that difficult because you may be labeled as a snitch, or you labeled as a sucker, or or any type of whatever derogatory term that is the word of the day, utilized to discourage you from interfering with the immediate enjoyment of those around you, because that's often what it boils down to. People wanting to have immediate gratification, and then being the voice of reasoning, spoiling it. I found that out when I was in leadership positions, and even now, like when there's things that that are not right, I have to be vocal about it. I can't stand idly by. I have to say something. And then people, they're, oh man, here you go with this again. That type of mentality. And
you have to, because if like, say for instance, somebody like in MOT's position in the transportation industry, he has a level of insulation because he chose to be a leader. So when automation kicks in and he starts to implement, self-driving trucks, well, he's the one that's implementing them. So it's not like he's going to be without the job. The people that work for him potentially may be at some point, but he has a level of insulation because he's taken on that responsibility to be a leader. And so I think people need to understand that, yes, there is a temporary sacrifice in leadership. And sometimes in some leadership positions, there's a possibility that you may lose money because you're paid a salary, or as an entrepreneur, you have to cut back on your salary to sometimes, to meet budgets, and things of that nature. So there's other things that you have to consider, if you're an entrepreneur, a business owner, or a leader. And so sometimes, immediately it's less lucrative than somebody, say, a salaried employee. But in the long run, it provides a level of insulation. And also, it gives you a different perspective because, having been in leadership positions, I can actually say I know how some things work, especially within the healthcare continuum. I understand why some things are done the way that they are. But when you're just an employee, you don't understand, and then you do certain things that's counterintuitive to your continued employment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, could I just add to what Super Triz was saying? Because
Right.
I've heard Super Triz talk about this a couple months ago. I heard very first time I listened to one of your broadcasts, brother. But you talked about this idea of Black people being selfless and sacrificing, and everything you said. The very definition of leadership is sacrifice. It means to yeah, the buck stops with you. You take the licks.
Mm-hmm.
But you push everyone else forward in the process. And that's something that we, that's something that Black males don't learn early in their life, as Super Triz noted. They don't learn the idea of where, being responsible for not just yourself, but for people that come under you. Again, this is how you create good fathers. Because a good father understands that, it's not just about me. This is my progeny. This is the woman I've had this progeny with. These people fall under my provision. And again, this is why you get some of these folks that we see out here. You get these folks that they don't understand, well, I'm living for me. I'm living my best life. This is all about me. The hell with everybody else. This is why you see young Black boys out here, they're 5, 6 years old. They're already on psychotropic drugs. Here they are, and they're teenagers. They've been in special ed, and they're never going to get out of it. And now they're adults, and they display those dysfunctions that was bred into them growing up. And this is where we get to this conversation now, where you talk about subordination. So the breaking process for Black males begins ultimately in those formative years in childhood.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, what I wonder if C Boogie brought this this point up before. Shout out to Dom Game Division. Shout out to C Boogie Productions. That these people need to be brought up on charges at the United Nations for human rights violations. I would say that this is a human rights violation to force this Black male into subordination to a social order that does not benefit him, not in the short term, not in the long term. I would say that we're under occupation with this social order, and something needs to be done about it. And I'm not seeing the fire in the brothers on in what we call a manosphere. I don't even know if we can call it that anymore. It seems to be more of a
Mike, those guys are not to be taken seriously. All right.
I'm making the point, brother. I'm making the point.
Sorry, bro.
Yeah. I'm not seeing it. I'm not seeing the fire come from those guys, and so the Black Brain Trust has to take up the reins and actually force the fight And if you care to, force this fight as well, you should subscribe and hit the like button and hit that notification bell so you get all the updates from us, because our time here is limited as well. We are not going to be here forever, probably not even after this year. But that being said, pass the mic around. You guys can give your closing thoughts before we get up out of here.
All right, well, nobody wants to go. I'll go first then.
Mhm.
All right, thanks for coming out. It's a very important conversation, something we should talk about a couple times a week, because people need to understand that by the time you realize that you're in an occupational zone, you've been passed over and you're 40, 50 years old, before you even can even recognize that there's a problem. Just because you think that you're starting off way ahead, you're actually being pretty truncated in what you're doing. So you got to be mindful of who's actually benefiting from your actions, because chances are it ain't you. Thanks so much for having me on, man.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Again, brother, thank you for having me on. I just put it this way. I'm a person that believes in triage. I mean, you save who you can, the rest, it is what it is. I know that's not the popular thing to say, but again, we don't have the time or the resources. I mean, every brother on this panel are busy men, professional men, don't have that kind of time. And so again, this comes down to where are our resources best used at. And again, they're best focused on the folks who get it and understand it. Have a good night.
Anyone else?
Before I leave, what I have to say is that so-called black males or black men, there is nothing wrong with putting you first. There is nothing wrong with putting your desires and your benefits first. Because at the end of the day, if you're not going to help, if you're not going to push yourself or help yourself, no one will. So there's nothing wrong with putting you first. And a lot of black males, we have to have this mentality where we don't give a damn what anyone think about us. Because it's almost like what I have witnessed with a lot of black males my age or younger is that when it comes to their own desires or following their own goals or their own dreams, and they're always listening to other people, discouraging them, worrying about what they think, worrying about pleasing them. You have to have a mindset of not giving about pleasing anyone but yourself. Put you first. And that's all I have to say. All right. You guys have a good night.
Shalom, brother.
Oh,
Yeah,
shalom. Shalom.
I just want to jump in real quick. Oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I just want to say, Mike, I apologize for cutting you off as you were trying to make your point. I just wanted to second everything that MOT said, and thank you for allowing me to contribute.
Problem, brother.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I just want to give a quick little scenario. There's a individual, a younger brother, who I talked to via Instagram, and he just picks my brain a little bit, and we kind of have a dialogue back and forth. And he asked me a question about day trading. And do you know what I told him about day trading? I told him absolutely nothing, because I don't know anything about day trading. I told him that wasn't my area of expertise. And so it would be a disservice for me to give him information on something that I know nothing about. But see, that level of accountability is something that I feel is lacking in this sector of YouTube, because people who have no knowledge base and no experience consistently try to give advice about subject matter they have absolutely no idea about. And that's the problem. And I think that people who peruse YouTube and enjoy the content, take it as just that entertainment. But when people start saying stuff that doesn't make sense, you have to question it. And if they get offended by the fact that you're asking them questions about what they say, then that should be your cue that this is somebody that you probably shouldn't be listening to. You know, if they can't admit that there's an area that they really don't know nothing about, and they're not willing to say, hey, you know what, I don't know this answer, but you know, maybe I can look into it and I can get an answer back to you. Or let me point you in the direction of somebody who may know the answer. That's what leadership is, right? Leadership is not necessarily knowing all the answers, but at least knowing what you don't know and knowing where to get the answers from. You know, that's real leadership. And that's something that we have to kind of push moving forward, is people embracing true leadership and not just being a damn know-it-all. Thanks.
No problem. Accomplish your.
Yo, hey, I'm sorry about that. Here I am. Just closing thoughts. Was that what we got going on, Mike?
Yep. Your last one.
Okay. Oh, okay. I would say, man, you know, it would benefit us to be more industrious, you know, as a mindset, right? As a base mindset for Black men, to think about being industrious and being global minded. Doesn't really benefit, you know, to really kind of think about, you know, your body count as like, you know, your a measure of success in one's life. How many women you've been able to bag and all that shit. That's not what's important. So, I mean, I guess the discussion will continue, but you know, I did, Mike. I would say though, like, let's maybe circle back around to that discussion about, you know, an offline boot camp.
Yeah, that's something that we will have to sit down and think about. And perfect time, it's 11 o'clock. So thank you all for joining us. Please hit the like button if you're not already done so. Hit that notification bell and subscribe button so you get all the updates from the Black Brain Trust. And if you want IT mentorship, we do offer that. Go back to our mentorship hangout for Black Mentorship Mondays, and you will hear some of the stories and people who are involved in mentorship who can actually help you, including myself. That being said, we are out. Shalom.
That